Hey everyone, Yan Zhao back again. Tonight we have special guest Ty coming back for his second campaign in the Undying Chronicles. This time for the Undying Chronicle, the first step.
Hello, hello. Thanks for having me on, man.
Yeah, thanks for coming back. We were talking a little backstage. It's been probably over a year now. So your first campaign was a success, fully funded. Everything went out, and the first campaign was a larger graphic novel. So,
Correct.
what would you say that you've learned after that first one?
Um, in the making process, marketing process, I've got different answers.
Go for it.
So I'll go with the marketing one. Trying to get a hold of people like you earlier was a real big thing I learned because I was stupid before and I didn't do a pre-launch campaign. So I had nothing to show, which makes it hard to go on shows because you're like, well, I've got pictures. I don't have a link or anything. And
Ah,
understandably, not a lot of people are too into having somebody like that on the show, which I completely get. Um, so this time, I made sure that I had a pre-launch that was up for a month beforehand, and I started even before that trying to look for people I could go on shows and kind of plan out better. And in some ways, that's made it more stressful because it's a longer period of time, but it's made it less stressful because I'm not constantly scrambling and bugging people in their DMs. So
that's true.
that's one of the big things I learned. Um, and I also decided for on the creative side to get a letterer for this campaign. Uh, the first graphic novel, I did all of it except editing, and that became a real time thing for me because I would sit there and I'd move the dialogue bubbles like 2 clicks, 1 click, 2 clicks, and then I do the revert after working on moving the bubbles around for like half an hour, and they end up being in the same spot. So to save
Yeah.
myself some time and headaches, I was lucky enough to get a guy named Gingerton, who
Oh,
also has a show here on YouTube, to
yeah.
do the
Ginge is
lettering
great.
for me, and that's been great. He's been awesome. I've apparently complimented him too much on other streams, so now he expects it on all the streams. So I think that's about all I'm going to give him for this one. But he is a good
Well,
guy. And I appreciate it.
that's good. He only has to watch 4 minutes, and then he can hear it and go about his day.
Exactly.
Uh,
So
mhm.
so the lettering, the trying to get everything prepared earlier, um, that all was something I learned this campaign through the last one, and just I have the same editor coming back. I think you know her as well, Kayla.
Oh, yeah.
So after having worked with her on the first one, that process went much smoother too because of the things she had taught me in the first one. I tend to be long-winded because I did start with trying to write novels, and you can take up an entire page of text with novels for dialogue. No one cares. You do that in comics, you can't see the art.
Yeah, that's
So,
true.
so I would say, in general, it was marketing, learning how to do that a little bit sooner, getting more help, and knowing how to work with the other people on my team.
Ah, excellent lessons for everyone to learn. Did you feel more confident going into this one as opposed to the first one?
I did to an extent. This one I wanted to be, like you said, the first one's a full 72-page graphic novel, and I wanted this one to be shorter, the size of a floppy, because I also wanted it to be more accessible to people. So
Hmm.
when your first book is a graphic novel and you're charging 25 plus shipping, a lot of people are not going to want to take the risk on you. You know what I mean? But
Yeah.
if it's a short one, I'm only doing $6 plus shipping. Uh, I felt like that was going to help people get more into it, but then that also put more pressure to get that nice tight story, no fluff, no extras, and that goes with working with Kayla before, because on that first one, there were certain times she's like, "This whole page is not needed, just take it out," and I'd already inked it and everything, and it was hard, but she was right. So it was a little bit more pressure in that regard. But then again, I also knew that people had read the first book, that I'd gone on shows, talked to people, so that made it a little bit easier to have more confidence, if nothing else.
So which did you prefer, the longer form or the shorter form?
I preferred the longer form, and the only reason for that is I have a couple different prequels, that I want to do leading up to the graphic novel. This one's the origin story. So I kind of preferred having them all together, but then that's where I got too long-winded and I had to cut a bunch of stuff. So I'm trying to do these shorter ones in a way that it's their own unique stories, so
Hmm.
that if it's your first one, you at least it's got a beginning, middle, and ending for you, that you don't need to read everything else, but also linked together. So it's a little bit more challenging than putting it all together in a graphic novel, but I think it's also better because it took me 2 years to do that first graphic novel. So, like you said, it's been about a year and a half since we talked last time, and I didn't want to have 2, 3, 4 years in between projects because no one's going to remember.
Yeah, I think it can be a bit difficult. So then these prequels, when you're done doing your series of floppy sized prequels, will they all form sort of a graphic novel, or they're all you plan on them being standalone forever? Let's put it that way.
They can be put into a graphic novel without much of a problem, maybe an extra page or two here or there. But it's I want it to be episodic. So as long as I have the basis of this is the character, here's what he's going through in this particular part of the story. Um, that's what my goal is for that. So the first one is how he gets his powers. The second one is going to be how he gets, something that was in the first graphic novel, his katana, which is a specially made blade for him. And then I have something I don't want to tease yet because I'm still forming the idea for the third one.
All right.
So they can work together. There would be breaks in between, chronologically, if it, like months or years in between the different parts of the stories. So I could go either way. Is a long way of saying that. Sorry.
No, no, no worries. Yeah, it's interesting because there's a few people now who, instead of following up um, a graphic novel with another graphic novel, they're choosing to go shorter form. And do you think this is just sort of like outliers, or do you think there's a trend in the indie industry um, to go shorter rather than longer?
From my own experience, I would say that it's probably going to turn more into a trend, and that's contingent on a few factors. Like there's some artists that can crank out a fully inked page in a single day, right?
Right.
From blank page, pencils, thumbnails, all the way up. So if you can crank stuff out fast and have it be a high quality, that's the kicker. Then I think those people might want to stay with the longer form graphic novels. I think why I know I did, and I think some other people shifted to the smaller ones, is there are so many books, there are so many creators that you want to be able to have a couple different campaigns to keep on people's minds, because it's not like one of the big two characters, right? Like
Hmm.
you're not going to forget, oh, Batman exists. So,
Right.
but if you're an indie creator, you would want more. Hey, I've got this coming out. I've got this coming out. That way, you're still in people's minds. Does that make any sense? What I'm trying to say?
Yeah, absolutely. There's that, and then I was wondering about the pricing as well. I mean, the economy could be better. Um, inflation is has been pretty high, so I was sort of wondering if the lower price point is also helping sales or interest at any rate.
Um, I can't say for me. I've been told that my price point is pretty low, and I don't know if that's gotten me extra sales. No, I take that back. I know two people that were, I probably wouldn't have gotten this, but it's only $3 for the flop for the digital copy, so I can spend $3 on this. So I know it helps some. I just don't know how much it helps because it also depends. Because you could kind of consider indie comics like artisanal, if
Mm-hmm.
that makes any sense.
Sure.
So you're paying more because you know it's a shorter run. You know they put all their passion into it, and it's not. Um, I just got a paycheck to put together a comic for my monthly job at a bigger publishing company.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a bit of a toss up. I think that there's going to be a sweet spot, and I don't know if we've found it yet on having a good price point that also reflects what you're trying to go for. Because like for me, the company I'm working with, I really like the quality of their paper, and it's also nice that they have a lower minimum threshold for a print run. So that's
Oh,
really good for a
nice.
smaller creator like me because it's a nice quality, and I don't have to get 100 copies to get it printed. So even though it's a little bit more per book, it ends up saving me more money because I don't have to get that minimum order in. So I think it's going to be some growing pains for not just me but other people because I hear horror stories about printers all the time.
Yeah, I hear that a lot too. Yeah, it's interesting for me because let's say the current indie scene boom started around 2018. So we're about 5 years in, and for about 5 years, the general consensus was $25 for a 48 to 60 page book. And it seemed okay for a while, but then I noticed more and more people starting to add more pages in order to attract an audience. So we're talking, 80 plus. And then it made me wonder, like, that's a lot of work. It's a lot more cost for the artist. And then it's still an issue where, like, a couple of years ago, I was at a comic book store near my house, and this guy who was like 35 or something, he comes in and he's got a kid who's maybe like 7, 8 years old, and he's like, "Oh, Daddy used to buy comics all the time when he was a kid." And the kid runs over to the shelf and he picks up a book, and the dad's like, "Oh, okay." And then you see his eyes go wide. He's like, "Oh, let's put that one down." And the book was $25.
Yeah.
So it makes me wonder that previously comics used to be sort of disposable, right? You could buy one with whatever change you had in your pocket. And I wonder if we're going to sort of see a dichotomy in the industry where you have like a high end, which $25 plus, but you're probably going to look at more like 100 to 120 page books versus something closer to a standard floppy, and the price point coming down a lot more closer to a floppy from like something like the big two would pay, but somewhere in that range.
I think we already have that a bit when you look at Alterna,
Mm-hmm.
because their price point is really, really low compared to everybody else. And I've gotten several of their books. Art's always good, stories are good from the ones I've read. Um, I don't know where Pete gets them printed. I doubt he wants to tell to get it flooded
No.
with people. But that was one of the things I was trying to get to with the printers is there's so many creators and so many printing places that once people start gravitating towards specific ones, I'm wondering if that'll lower the printing cost or if it'll raise the printing cost. Because when I was looking at this, something Ninja, I don't remember what, Print Ninja, I
Oh,
think is
Print
what it
Ninja,
was
yeah.
called. Their prices were good, but you needed to order, I think, like 150 for a minimum
Hmm.
order, which is a lot if you're a smaller creator. Now, if you're one
Yeah.
of the people that has thousands of backers, that's not a problem, and you can go there. But if you're starting out, you don't really have brand recognition yet, and you only need 20 copies, it becomes really expensive to get an extra 80 copies you're not going to use.
Yeah, that's definitely true. Although most people do overprint. The only thing I would disagree with you about with Alterna is, at least for the moment, he, I mean, you can buy the books a la carte on the Alterna website, but in general, when he does campaigns, it's like $25 for the summer campaign, for the fall campaign, or I think it was $25 also for the King Cryptid stuff. So in some ways, it's,
It,
yeah.
I
The
see your
the price
point
per
because
book is cheaper, but he's selling a lot of books at one time.
that's true. That's true. I mean, I did King Cryptid too, and I think there's four in that bundle,
Yeah.
issues one through four. So I mean, it's kind of like you've gotten a graphic novel.
Oh, five. Oh, here we go. Alex says 5 floppies for only $12. So my mistake.
Well, there we go.
Much more
But
affordable.
yeah, but Pete's been doing this for quite a while, and I'm sure he's got some contacts with his printer that helps him out too.
Oh
And
yeah.
business wise, that volume probably helps as well. Because if you have the good relationship with your printer and the minimum order thing we were talking about before,
Hmm.
and if he was like, look, I've got 7 titles that I need 500 copies of, but I've got 2 titles that are the prestige ones, so I only need, because they're variant covers or whatever, I only need 100. They might fudge like, okay, well, we usually need you to have more than this, but once again, with the volume alternatives doing, I don't know if that applies to them, but I could see how that could apply generally to the industry.
Oh, sure. Well, I mean, back in the day when Marvel was printing like 300,000 copies of X-Men, I mean, it cost almost nothing for them to print those books on a per issue basis.
Exactly. So I think that's going to be one of the things for the indie scene to try to figure out, because you said 5 years, and the ones I remember in the very beginning were your boy Zach
Hmm.
with Jawbreakers, and then he had something else too that was a black and white comic. I'm spacing on the name of that one.
I can't think of the name where they were at the border.
Yeah, and then Ethan Van Sciver with his Cyber Frog,
Hmm.
and there weren't too many others, but now there's just so many people, which is awesome because there's so much more work we can pick and choose through. But it is a more supply and demand thing as we're going on. There's a certain amount of books that one person can buy.
Yeah,
So that's like my problem personally is I can't afford to back every single campaign that I would want to back.
definitely.
So unfortunately, that's good for creators that we've got the chance to do all this stuff, and it's good for the consumer to have choice to do all this stuff, but it does make it harder to stand out and get the higher print runs that you would need to lower the cost, in my
And
opinion anyway, if that makes any sense.
yeah, that makes sense. Can you see indie creators sort of banding together? So, for example, if you got together with like Kayla and Ginge and some of the other people and said and went to a printer and said, "Hey, we have instead of saying one book that you need like 50 copies of, you can say, okay, we have 6 books that we need 300 copies. Do you think that? Do you think you'll? Well, do you think that maybe in the future we'll see groups of people sort of getting together like that. Not necessarily as like mini publishing companies, but sort of strength in numbers type of thing.
I would think so. Um, it's a good idea, and it sounds like somebody's already done it by something I just read in the chat.
Oh yeah. Hmm. Interesting. I'm not familiar with Arrow comics.
Uh,
Oh, okay.
I think it'll really depend on the printers for that one, because the one I'm going with, I think, is a smaller printing company.
Hmm.
Their customer service has been great, but it seems like it's only two people. At least
Yeah.
that's all I've had contact with. So I could see them going, okay, um, we'll do that, but we want to put ads or something. Like they have that as
Hmm.
an option to lower the cost a little bit anyway. Uh, so I could see maybe, because I get less than 100 when I go to them. So I have a feeling that if I came and I was like, I need 400 books, but it's all these different books, they might be willing. But I would think that would depend on the printers. I hope that would be something that could happen in the future. Um, I did think that many publishing companies would have been a good idea when everything first started. I'm not sure how that would work now, just because everyone seems to have slightly different goals on what they want to do.
Yeah.
So if you're having one big company, one creator might not like the vision, so to speak, of the company, and there could be problems.
Yeah, I mean, that is sort of one of the problems of indies, and that's just business sense. I guess I would say, like, it's hard when you like a group of people and you want to get together and work with them, and then sort of you're in the midst of things, and you're like, oh, their goals aren't the same as my goals, and like, how do you disentangle yourself without rupturing friendships and business relationships?
Exactly. Like for me personally, I know this is different from for everybody. Making comics is my like joy. It's my stress release, except for when I have to do the campaign itself, because those are always stressful. But it's my artistic outlet. I'm always working on something with the comics, either doing thumbnails or writing scripts, etc., etc. But I know that I'm not marketing savvy enough to get one of the 5 6 figure campaign deals, and I'm fine with that. The reason my funding goals are so low is because I'm covering the cost of printing, and I'm covering the cost of paying the people that work with me. I have no problem doing it for free. If I get any extra money, I try to put that aside for the next campaign. Like the last one, the extra money went into getting more a bulk Gemini shipper deal, because
Oh,
uh,
nice.
it was the weirdest thing when I was getting smaller amounts, like 25, I think is what I needed for Gemini.
Hmm.
They were $3 a piece. If you get 100, then they're only like $1.05.
Yeah.
So that's what I spent the extra money past the production costs on the last one. So for me, that's all my goal is. I mean, it would be awesome to be one of those 5 6 figure campaigns, even four. I haven't hit a 4 figure yet. But if it's somebody that it's now their livelihood to make and sell comics, I don't know that they would want to work with someone that just wants to be able to tell their stories and get the stories out there,
Right.
because it's more of a no, this is a business. It's not for fun. We have deadlines. So it all depends on what the goals of the people are and if they're compatible. But if you have a group of people that are all on the business side that get together, I agree with you that there can be some friendship issues. So it would people would probably have to talk for a while before jumping in. Um, I think on the other end though, Um, I've seen a lot of people, for instance, switching over to anthologies recently.
Hmm.
I think that's a good one too, because that way you get a bunch of different stories as the consumer, and as the creators, you have less pressure because you're working with the other people. And if you just want to get the anthology, you want your stories out there, that's a good way to go. And then plus, if you're working with several other people, that also helps you with your marketing, because if it's kind of like going on the shows, right?
Right.
People that I follow or that follow me don't necessarily follow you, and vice versa. So just by having you retweet me, that's people that would never see me post a tweet, or X or whatever they're called now. But if you're working with like 5, 6 different teams to make an anthology, all of their reach that's outside is getting more eyes on your story as well.
Absolutely. Yeah, and I would say, you know, for most newcomers, I wouldn't be so concerned with the dollar value. I mean, of course, everybody wants to, have $100,000 plus campaign, but it can take some time. A lot of those people who do have the larger campaigns, they it took them several books, or they previously had a career doing whatever part of comics somewhere else. So, and even though it might be their first crowdfunder, it's sort of not their first book. They're
Right.
not dipping their toes in anymore. But I can definitely see, as the volumes stack up, audience builds up, and I wouldn't be surprised 4 figures, 5 figures.
I'm hoping so. It's also to go to what you were saying earlier with the starting bigger, going smaller.
Mm-hmm.
It's also harder to get bigger campaigns when you're cheaper, which is something
Right.
I did not even consider. So that's why I tried to do some different add-ons this time, to try to set me apart, so that less backers, I can still get get funded, and B, I want people to have something different if they're coming to my campaign. Because I love the concept of the stretch goals and the add-ons for the books. I think that's one of the fun things about crowdfunding, is being part of that. Hey, can we get to this goal? If we get to this goal, then we get this extra thing for no charge. Like I
Mm-hmm.
have a little stack of the trading cards that I've gotten from all the indie creators, and I
Oh,
really like
nice.
those. So what I tried to do is I put a little spin on that concept for my first stretch goal, and I did character sheets for the monsters that give lore to the monsters that I couldn't put in the books. But at the top, they also have stats that you can use in games like D&D and Pathfinder.
Oh, very cool.
So I was trying to, how the back of the cards have their abilities and stats and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I was trying to like bridge that, and then also I found that the tabletop community was really cool at letting me post stuff about my book, even though it's not technically a tabletop related, other than I have a warrior and I have monsters. So someone said, I would love to play one of these characters in a game, or I'd love to use them as something my players can fight. So I went, cool, I'm going to do that. So when I did the pre-launch campaign, I had 20 signups. So I unlocked this as the first stretch goal before the campaign even started. There are 3 of them. There's the one you have on the page, and that's for the monster from the original book.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'm going to screen share. Give me 1 second. So the current book has 2 different types of giant spiders. So this is one of the 2, and its sheet. And I'm trying to make sure that the stats are generic enough that they can work in both games. So I'm waiting on my friends that play both games to get back to me to make sure that they're not too OP. So that's why I only have these 2 ready. But I
Oh,
try
that makes
to
sense.
I try to make it look like the old Dungeons and Dragons monster manual, because that was the best part of the game for me, was flipping through that thing.
Yeah, I mean, I always loved it, and I'm glad you found that other communities. This is something that I mentioned to a lot of people is, you know, of course, you want comic buyers to buy your comic, but there's so many other groups out there who don't even consider comics as entertainment anymore because there's sort of nothing for them in the mainstreams. But probably once upon a time, they actually enjoyed comics a lot. So, if you can come up to them with something that they would enjoy, I think that I think that you'd have more sales. The only problem with the indie comics group, uh, fans, buyers online, is that there's just not enough of them. So, anytime you can sort of step out to like an adjacent hobby or fandom, I think it's a good thing.
Yes, I was actively doing as much as I could between the last campaign and this one. So I started doing some looking into the writing community on Twitter,
Hmm.
and I've since branched out to some of the other social media platforms. Uh, but I've found very few people who don't think writing a comic is writing. So that was nice, because I did have someone in my own life that had just a really bad experience with comics and just does not like them as a result. And for some reason, she hits many of the stereotypes of it's for dumb people, it's for kids, it's not real writing. And then, of course, with the no offense, okay, thanks. But
Yeah.
then I gave her a preview of my comic, and she's like, um, I don't know several of these words. I think you're doing it too smart. I'm like, no, I think you read the wrong comics before.
Oh.
Because one of the words was tome.
Oh, okay.
And she's like, I don't know what that is. I'm
Oh,
like, all right. And then another one was coalesced. And
coalescent.
I'm
Huh.
thinking, I know you. She reads a lot of novels, not necessarily good novels, but she reads a lot of novels. And she'll look up words if she doesn't know what they are, if she's reading a novel. So I'm like, maybe it's your bias? Because if this wasn't a comic, I'm pretty sure you would just look up those three words instead of suggesting I change those three words.
Yeah, I would agree too. Plus it's probably the genres that she reads.
This is
You,
true.
if it's like true crime or something, then it's going to be a lot different than someone who like read um, Conan the Barbarian or something.
Exactly. I don't think she has a very high opinion of Lord of the Rings either, so that could be the problem.
Oh, okay. So that's when you know not to take their criticism seriously.
Yeah, pretty much. Um, like you can not like the Lord of the Rings books. They're not my favorite by any means. If you think they're stupid, that's when I'm like, really? Because they literally started a whole genre of
Yeah,
writing.
yeah. I mean, it totally redefined what was there during the Romance period. And today, like, how can you even have a role playing game that doesn't have some version of like humans, elves, dwarves? It's like almost impossible.
Exactly. And same with fantasy. I mean, it's really hard to find a fantasy book that doesn't have those characters. But if they do, they will have some sort of a stand-in. If that, like,
Oh, absolutely.
I've been doing the audiobooks for Wheel of Time, which is a
Hmm.
very long series. And they have something in there called Trollocs, which are basically a stand-in for an orc. They don't look the same, but they serve the same function as the orcs in Lord of the Rings.
Oh, sure. I mean, you even see it in sci-fi. Klingons are basically, some version of that.
Yeah, I do not think having Vulcans with pointy ears was an accident.
Nope.
I'd say Klingons are probably dwarves, mainly because the facial hair and the battle spirit.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. So why don't you run us through the Indiegogo while we're here
Alrighty,
and show everyone what you got?
let me bring up that screen share then. All right, am I sharing?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Oh,
So, do you want me to play
oh, there we go.
the trailer video? I
Uh,
don't.
you can, but I'm having a little technical difficulty with audio from videos right now.
All right, then I won't do that. So, um, we won't worry about that. But there's a video. I made it. It exists. It's playable. So my campaign is funded, um, and it's a little over a week left. So just to give everyone the backstory here, this is about the Undying, who is the my character that I created for the graphic novel, and it's his origin story. Um, it's 24 pages, full color. There's action, betrayal, alchemy from a forgotten age, interdimensional portals, and giant spiders. So instead of doing a variant cover, what I decided to do is a book with a front and back cover.
Oh,
So
cool.
that's what you're seeing here. So everyone gets both covers that way. And this is the first page of the book. I'll scroll down in a couple seconds. Um, Once again, I do have to say, even though I said I wouldn't, I loved Ginge's lettering on this. I thought he did a real good job, especially with the sound effects on this page, so that they're not too obtrusive, but you can still see them. Was really happy with it.
Oh, yeah, they look great.
He does give me problems that I was trying to do herbs and he thinks it looks like he's making something else. But I think that's fair. So, in the depths of history, where uh, legend blurs, this is the origin story for the Undying. He's a wandering warrior on a quest to hunt creatures of folklore and myth in the hope of keeping them from harming humanity, or at the very least, avenge any human that already has been taken from the world. And here's a little action scene with him and the spiders. What does the Undying mean, you may ask? Well, it's a form of immortality where the warrior can and does actually die. He comes back to life in an excruciating way where he feels the pain of and anguish of his death, but in reverse. His body rapidly heals, but he feels every wound a second time. And here's the page of that starting to happen to him. This is after he gets his powers.
Very cool.
The book is an adventure. I'm going feudal Japan is probably the best way instead of putting an age or a year on it. But everything that I'm doing with it, I've been researching as many of the different creatures of folklore, and I've been talking with people in Japan itself to make sure I'm not doing anything stupid by misrepresenting the creatures or the cultures. So this this is the last page without the lettering on it, and I wanted to end this way, where you can see that all these portals that these creatures could go through for future adventures. And I even have the creature which is called a kappa from the first book in here.
Mm-hmm.
So that way, this story ends. It does have a concise ending, but you also know there are more stories. But if you don't want to read more, you don't have to. I would love you to, but try to make sure there's a nice, concise ending for everybody.
Yeah,
And
I that is
okay,
sort of one of my pet peeves about a lot of indie books. It's like, all right, here's the setup, and just as the book ends, okay, next time we'll totally get to the story.
see, that's why I thought I could get away with it a little bit more with a prequel. Because if nothing else, right? If I don't make any more books for whatever reason, this book, and then you get the graphic novel, and the graphic novel doesn't have. It has a concise ending. There are questions, but not. enough that, oh my god, you if you don't read the next book, you're never going to understand how this story works.
Yeah. Yeah.
And some of the elements in there that I left a little open is one of the reasons I wanted to do these prequels. Um, Once again, this was going to Kayla, and I love her for it because otherwise, I would still be trying to promote the first graphic novel at this point. There was a point in there where I started going off on one of these prequel subplots that I want to do, and she went, "Look, dude, I said 72 pages, not 120 pages. If you want to do that storyline, cool. We can talk about prequels, but not in this book." So really appreciated that aspect of it because I think that's also another thing with what you were asking earlier. There might be a point where if people keep adding on pages to the graphic novel, it gets a little much, a little daunting, so to speak, for the consumer. Like
That is a good possibility.
like I'm currently looking over at my copies of Watchmen and Planet Hulk, and they are bigger than some of the textbooks I had in school. So
Yeah. Yeah.
it'd be a little daunting if
I
you had
mean,
that big of a story run.
I'm fine with it if it's a trade paperback, so let's say you do um, 3 or 4 more of these, and at some point you say, "Oh, I want to collect everything into one volume." That would make sense for me.
Agreed.
But I don't know. Usually, I mean, I guess 120 kind of makes sense, but once you go past that, it's like, man, how are you ever going to finish that book?
Yeah, that was it exactly for me. With I was so happy that Kayla reined me in with that because I would have done that and no. Plus, I think the printing would have been even more insane at
Oh,
that
for
point.
sure. And the shipping?
Oh yeah. Oh dude, the shipping is the thing I hate the most about running a campaign because I feel bad for charging for the shipping because it's so expensive.
Yeah.
And I've tried looking at UPS and FedEx and the U.S. Postal Service, and I can't do international shipping because when I went to any of them, just the floppy and a Gemini mailer was going to be at least $35 to get anywhere outside of the U.S. And I'm sorry, I don't feel like I can charge someone $35 shipping for a floppy.
Yeah, for sure.
So I guess that's actually a good segue too. That I wanted to make sure that on all my books, because of that, and also the economy factors you mentioned, everything I do, I have a digital copy of as well. So this one, the digital copy is $3. The book itself is $6. That's for the physical copy. And what I'm trying to do with the digitals so that everyone can participate in the stretch goal aspect is any image that's part of the stretch goal that somebody that's physically going to get a print of, I'm putting part of that into the PDF so that the digital copies get the stretch goals.
Oh, wow.
So you'll get this one that's right next to it here as part of the PDF, so you can participate in the stretch goal aspect. Because I haven't seen that done a lot, and I'm not sure why. But to me, if if you want to help out the campaign and you buy it and your money for the digital goes towards a stretch goal, you should get the stretch goal. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
So I have the first book, $3 for the digital, six plus shipping for the physical copy of the book. And then I had a limited number of graphic novels left over. So I'm doing a book bundle. I have 4 left to be claimed out of that, and that's $30 plus shipping. And once again, that's into the United States. And so that's 96 pages worth of story if you get the book bundle.
That's not
And,
bad for $30.
yeah, and it's also $10 for the digital, and it's
That
the
is,
same deal. Whatever we get in for the stretch goals will be put into the digital bundle to make sure everyone that wants to read it gets to read it.
That's downright affordable. So you have the cards as your stretch goals. Um, do you have any others?
I do have another one, but can I throw this one in first just so I can? I have to screen share the other one.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Um, on my first campaign, I put up an acrylic painting that was a castle with cherry blossoms just to do something different. And it was the second thing purchased within a couple hours of going live.
Oh, nice.
So this time I've done painting perks, and I'm trying to treat them a bit like a sketch card or um, that sort of thing that you would get on a normal campaign. So I have two sizes available: 5 by 7 inches and 8 by 10. And if you order one of them, you get to choose what size you want, and then you just tell me which theme you want, and then I paint you a custom painting that goes with one of the themes. And
Wow.
there are three of those. This one I call Cherry Blossom Landscape, and then Cherry Blossom Castle at Night, and I have the cherry blossom theme to go with the resurrection um, symbolism for the Undying, in case anyone's wondering. And then the last option is his homestead, which is one of the locations that's in the book. So it's his little cottage where he lives and some of the surrounding area. So those are add-ons. There's two 8 by 10s left that are available, and several of the 5 by 7s. So if you're interested, when you go to checkout, just hit the extra perk bundle.
Oh, very
And
cool.
then for the stretch goal,
Oh. Alex says a lot of stretch goals don't really translate nicely to digital, but I guess there's no harm in including the artwork for stretch goals either. Yeah, I mean, obviously it's cooler to get like a sticker than something included in a PDF. However, if they're multifunctional, so for example, in this, the cards, they have, monster stats and monster information. So for me, I mean, that's a pretty cool addition.
I appreciate you, and I get what he's saying too. Um, like I said, I guess that's the other thing is I'm purposely not doing keychains or stickers because of that issue. What I'm doing is prints, and for a variety of reasons, both that it works better for adding to the digital, but it also will make the shipping not get more expensive um, because I want the books to get there perfect for all the backers. And what I do is I do the bags and boards, and I put bubble wrap around them, and then I put them in the Gemini mailer. Um, I tried doing something. I can't remember what campaign it was, but there was like a keychain in it, and somehow it dented my book.
Oh,
So nothing wrong with the person. I don't think it was their fault. It seemed like it slid somewhere, but I don't want to. I don't want to deal with that. They were cool about it when I told them, so it was all good. But just made me not like that idea for my own stuff because I'm doing all the shipping aspects too. I don't want to screw up somebody's book.
yeah, I can definitely see that. And of course, with printed material, just slide it on in there or on top or on the bottom.
True. And the dead space in the mailer, that's a good one too in the chat.
Right. And you were going to show us that other
I
goal.
should be screen sharing it.
Oh, sorry, that was my fault.
So I called this the Frank Miller inspired Ogomo, which is the large spider in the book. Um,
Mm-hmm.
I apparently don't. Not everyone knew why I was saying Frank Miller inspired, so I'm going to go with Sin City. So
Ah,
it's the coloring scheme that I was trying to do in that that style where he highlights with the really strong primary colors
Mm-hmm.
while everything else is black and white. And this one is going out. We reached it when we hit the $500 goal. So this will be a print on photo paper. I believe it's a 5x7 that I have it set up for. And just for a fun fact, this is my test drawing for the creature. It's the first time I ever drew it.
Mm-hmm.
So this one has horns. The one in the book has lost its horns.
Ah,
It was
well,
an executive decision for trying to fix some mistakes I had made. I basically at one point had dropped the horns, and I literally just went panel by panel. How many do they have horns? How many don't have horns? Because I'm going to redraw the ones that have the less of that number.
well, I can
Other,
definitely appreciate that.
yeah, because otherwise you're going to be like, where'd the horn go? But it also would have impacted some of the fight scene that I had sketched out. So I decided to go hornless. But
Okay.
I still want people to have the original. I'm not good at doing original pieces as stretch goals, and that's because I work with these little sketch diaries that are only 9x6 inches,
Oh.
which work out really well to fit onto the comic page.
Mm-hmm.
They don't work really well for framing, and it's not what people would expect if you're getting an original page. Mostly, you think
Yeah.
of the 11x17, I think they are.
Yeah. Yeah.
So once again, I don't want to do anything to mislead my backers, or because some people might not read the "it's on this side" page, and then they get it and like, what the hell, man? Why did I get this tiny picture?
Well, that is true. So now you mentioned you have, sorry, was it two more or three more of these prequel stories that you plan on telling?
One for sure, and I'm working on the concept for a second one.
Okay.
Um,
So, oh, sorry, go
okay,
ahead.
no, you go.
Oh, I was going to ask, do you plan to keep developing this world, this storyline, or do you have other projects that you want to work on as well?
I can only work on one at a time, and this one never leaves my brain long enough to do a lot of work on other things.
Hmm.
So right now it's going to be I want to get his storyline done. There's another project that I did before um, where I was trying to do a series of floppies for another hero, also set historical fiction. Looking back on them now, I would have to redraw the whole thing, which
Oh,
is which is fine because I've had 5 years of artistic development.
oh, for sure.
But that was 50 pages in at that point.
That's a lot to
So
redraw.
a lot to redraw. Plus, thanks to Kayla and knowing that I put in too much, it would also be a lot of getting rid of stuff. And I'd rather just finish out the one storyline, or at least get it to a reasonable concluding point before trying something else like that. That is, unless one of my campaigns does do gangbusters, and then I can use that money to hire other artists. That's
Hmm.
something I would definitely be willing to do.
Ah, interesting. Are there any people who you're really dying to work with?
Um, that I could work with, or like,
Well, you could work with anyone if the money's there.
okay,
Even Jim Lee or Todd McFarlane, I'm sure.
that's what I was going with. Like, are we talking realistic, or are we talking realm of possibilities here?
Let's go with
Um,
both.
Jim Lee is a good one. I doubt he has time, and I don't know that I could actually give him any sort of artistic direction at all, which probably would be a problem. I really like Ryan Stegman, um, George Capullo. He would be awesome, though he's also retiring, so I'd need a lot of money for that.
Oh,
At least I think he said he was retiring.
wow.
I could be mistaken on that. I'm not sure. I saw him say something about playing more guitar and drawing less books, so maybe not retiring. I don't know. Um,
Maybe just scaling it down a bit.
yeah. 1 second. Sorry, I had to cough and didn't want to blow it out of my eardrums.
No worries.
Um, Ryan Wynn is someone I would really like to work with. He
Hmm.
helped me a lot um, developing my artistic style. He used to do these late night inks, which were so helpful
Uh,
um, to help learn about how to do the different pen weights and things of that nature. I don't think he's doing comics anymore now, unfortunately.
I think he's working at Storm King. Yeah, he
Okay,
did kind of fall off the earth, but on Instagram he was posting stuff from Storm King, and I think I saw he went to some convention with them.
nice. Yeah, I was a little worried about him when he disappeared off Twitter, but I heard he was alive. So,
That's
and
the
I
important thing.
yeah, and we all know that there are times that you want to get off Twitter.
Oh, for sure.
So he would be cool. I also liked Coots, Dean Coots. Is that how you pronounce his last name?
Oh, the author?
Um, Maybe that's why I'm screwing up. The gentleman that did Gods and Gears, the art for it, the
Oh,
pencils.
yeah, it is Coots.
Okay,
Um,
he would be someone cool to work with. Um, and it would also depend on the story for me too, obviously. Um, Ginger's buddy Pedro is a really good artist. Would be interested in working with him too. Unfortunately, I don't think my writing style meshes well with his art style.
mhm.
But from the samples I've gotten, because they're doing a big book coming out, and they also did a smaller horror anthology. His style changes with whatever book he's doing, so it would be cool to see what he does with one of my stories.
Oh
And there's
yeah.
also a couple people on Twitter that are not necessarily in the comic realm that I would really like to work with. I've even talked to him about it. The problem, of course, is expense because they're good and they would like to be compensated for being good. Which,
Yes.
so one of them is named, I think it's pronounced Hampus Flink. He's German or Swiss or something. I don't remember exactly right now. But he's a really cool. Oh, I guess he lives in Spain. He's a really cool artist, and he recently even did his own little mini comic, which was super cool. It was set in the bayou, and it was a swamp queen, um,
Oh.
and his art was really cool for it. I even did I colored the cover of it basically, um, which was fun. But I also don't know that I could work with him because he was not mean in any way. He was really like, okay, cool, but you would need to change this, and that if you wanted me to use it. So, which is fair because I would do the same thing.
Oh, for sure.
Uh, but love his art. And there was another guy on there on what is it now? X.
Yeah, X.
I always say the wrong name.
X Twitter.
Yeah. Some of these people are international, so that's why I butchered the names, and I'm very sorry about that. Oh, he. Oh, okay. He goes by Gabriel. Um, and I cannot pronounce his at name, unfortunately. But his style is like a Baroque, late medieval mixture. So
Oh,
they look a lot like Renaissance religious paintings.
that's cool.
Yeah, and the book I was mentioning to you, that was the 50 pages that I have to redraw. Um, that one was taking place in Italy in 1505. So I was like, oh, if I could get him to do it, but he obviously is not. too down for signing on to a 50-page book while he's trying to grow his own brand, which I
Yeah.
completely understand.
Yeah, that's true. I I mean it's kind of a hard thing, I think. Yeah, you if you're lucky enough, you'll catch someone right when they're trying to enter the industry. Of course, then you don't get the pro level, even if they're really good. But the whole money thing is hard. The only thing I'd say is look for Southeast Asia because they're cheaper.
That's true. Although one of the people I really also enjoy is from the Philippines, and she does great stuff. And she goes by Frost. How can I'm sorry, I can't pronounce it in English, and that's the language I actually speak. Um, it's double L. I don't remember how you pronounce a
Oh,
double L.
uh, Yamazan or something.
Yeah, Frost Yamazan. I
Oh
think.
yeah, she's great.
Yeah, I think you follow her too, right?
I do, yeah.
Yeah. So great, great, great art from her and quick. And she's actually one of the only fan arts I've gotten of my character, and
Oh,
it is so cool. And unfortunately, I do not have it on the computer. But she was doing one of those do it in your own style things
mm-hmm.
for other people's original characters,
Oh,
and
nice.
I got pulled out of the hey, do mine, and it's so awesome.
Very cool.
So yeah, there's definitely people I would work with. Unfortunately, it's just so expensive, and they deserve every penny.
That's true. Uh, so, any last thoughts on the campaign or anything else people should know?
The campaign is going to go on in demand. I know that much since we did get funded. So while there's only 9 days left, you can wait to go in demand. Though yeah, I wouldn't wait too long, especially if you want to get one of the book bundles, since I do only have 4 of those remaining, and that's it. That's all the copies I have left of the graphic novel. So if those are ever available again, they're going to be a different print run. So if you want to catch the first print run, that's it. After those 4 are gone, they're gone. Um, I do have an update I got today. The books have actually been shipped, so I should be getting them on Friday, which is going to be really cool. I can't wait to crack that box open and show everybody the book in print, which I think is also one of those things that I wish I could. I get so excited, and I don't know how many people care. Where you're like, I have my words and my pictures printed in books. They're in front of me. They're tangible. They're not on a screen. So I
Yeah,
can't
for
wait to
sure.
do that. I'll probably do a little video on my own YouTube channel and share it. So I'm excited about that. And yeah, 9 days left on the campaign, chugging along. Um, but yeah, that's about it. There's a few that you might want to grab before they get gone, but rush on the last day would be fine with me too.
All right. Well, everyone, the link to the Indiegogo campaign is pinned in the comments, and it is also in the description down below the video. So if you're interested um, in the Undying Chronicle, The First Death, or if you want to pick up both books, this one and the previous graphic novel, do that while you can. And Ty, thanks for coming. Hopefully, it won't be another year and a half before we talk again.
Hopefully, I have about half of the second one done. So,
Oh, nice.
and we can talk about that more too. I did have a question for you specifically about that. We'll talk about that at the end there.
Oh, for sure. All right. So, everyone, I will be back soon. I don't know who the next guest will be, but I'm sure they will be popping up shortly. Meanwhile, Friday evenings, I am on the Dungeon Delvers channel for classic Gamma world, I will be playing the incredibly handsome Rex Dashington human mech pilot. And I know I've been saying it, but seriously, I will have more information soon on Empire of the Undying Sun, my campaign guide for D&D. So
Awesome.
thanks everyone for coming, and I'll see everyone soon.
Take care, everyone.